Hey, this is Andrew, and I am here bringing you another Keyforge Age of Ascension deck reveal slash review. This one is going to be of Lavender, the Doctor, Zonagrump, who is Sanctum, Logos, and Untamed. And before we get started, I just wanted to mention a couple things. First of all, this one is open because I opened it up and used it to play somebody. Um, Now, in this case, it was remote, and I actually just entered all the cards into Tabletop Simulator manually. But I really get a lot of enjoyment out of playing a deck that way without analyzing it first. And I highly recommend, if you're opening decks, try to get that experience in because I really think people miss out if they don't do that experience. Having said that, I also wanted to say if you love this type of content where we open decks and walk through them, I really enjoy doing them. I have at least 10 more decks sitting around waiting to be opened up and gone through. So that is fun, and I'm sure I'll have more coming after that. If you want even more than that, I've also lately watched a few of these style of videos from other people, and it's been interesting to see how they do things differently. Jean-Claude Van Keyforge, for example, holds the decks a certain way, and he goes through them the opposite the direction I do. I like my way, um, but it's just interesting seeing people do different stuff. He has some stuff he does after he walks through the cards, and Watsi does some videos. Team Covenant did a video recently where they walk through and do some deck analysis, and I haven't finished watching that one yet, but I'm excited because I like everything those guys do. So anyway, all that to say, if you love this type of content, there is more out there. Don't don't starve just because you don't know where to get the food. Okay, so with that said, let's jump into this. This is Sanctum, Logos, and Untamed, Lavender, the Doctor, Zonagrump. What am I looking to get out of these? I talked about. Have I talked about any of these yet? For Age of Ascension, I don't know. When I open up Sanctum, I'm hoping to get some protection for my cards, a little bit of board control maybe, uh, and some big creatures. But mostly, I'm looking to get board control out of that. With Logos, I'm hoping to have some card control, some card manipulation, some draw, some archive. I really love Archimedes in this set because he allows me to use creatures and put them straight into my archives after doing something fighty with them. And then Untamed, I'm looking for aember generation and maybe a little board control too. So okay, let's get started. And we start with Cutthroat Research. This is a card I don't love. It has a bonus aember, that's good. And then you steal two if your opponent has 8 or more. I think it's fine. The stealing two is good. The thing that's underwhelming about this card is you can't really use it to keep your opponent off of forging without a lot of other support that isn't in Logos. So for that reason, it's a bit of a bummer. Uh, but I mean, it really is a fine card. Like it's not bad. It's just not that exciting. Then we have Poke. Bonus Amber, play deal 1 to an enemy creature. If that damage destroys the creature, you draw a card, and that's pretty cool if you can pull it off. And sometimes this will give you really nice spot removal, just depending on what's out there. Then we have Titan Librarian. I love this card, 4 power, and at the end of your turn, if Titan Librarian is not on a flank, you archive a card. So you want to keep this in the middle of your battle line. And importantly, this happens after you've done the draw step. So step 5 in your turn is to draw until you have is to draw up to your maximum your hand size, which by default is 6. So at the end of most turns, you're going to draw up to 6. And then after you've drawn up to 6, Titan Librarian is going to make you archive a card. At that point, you're at 5 cards. You don't draw again. It's still very strong, trust me. But yeah, it's just a really nice passive effect that happens even on non-Logos turns. I love it. It's even better than Mother, which is why it's lower power, I think. And we have two of those. So I'm, yeah, really happy if I can keep two of those in my battle line. Then we have a Titan Mechanic, who is 6 power, and this one does want to be on a flank. While it is on a flank, each key costs -1. Importantly, that does apply to your opponent as well. That's coming back from Call of the Archons. Then we have ZYX Researcher, which is 2 power, and when you play it, so as a play effect, archive the top card of your deck or the top card of your discard pile. This is why you need to be actually managing the order in which things go into the discard pile. If multiple things are destroyed at once, the active player decides which order they go into the discard pile. This all matters. So just be aware of that. And it matters for this card because you can archive the top card of your discard pile. If you don't want to, you can just archive the top card of your deck instead. And that's a strong effect. Getting to get a card back that way. It's somewhat similar to like Nepenthe Seed, which I've always thought was a strong card. Then we have Fila the Researcher, who is 1 power with Elusive, and she says that after a creature is played adjacent to her, you draw a card. So this is really nice if we get some cards with deploy effects, which there are 3 of in Sanctum. And but it can be really nice anyway. Drop a creature next to her and draw a card. That's a fun effect. I like it. Next we have Interdimensional Graft, also returning from the first set. 1 bonus aember, and if your opponent forges a key on their next turn, they give you the rest of their aember. So really nice if it's like a delayed too much to protect. If your opponent has does a big burst and they have a lot that they're going to have left over, it can be really nice. It's a good archive target because that way you can use it when it will be most effective. But the bonus aember makes it not bad to just use whenever. Jargoggle, 2 power creature with elusive. And when you play it, you put a card from your hand face down under it. And when it's destroyed, if it's your turn, you play the card. Otherwise, you archive it. And this acts very similar to Master Plan from Call of the Archons, which was in Shadows, and it's a nice way to get to play a power card on a not on a Logos turn. It's clever that they made it archive the card if it's destroyed not on your turn. That way you don't have to deal with the card being played by your opponent or with the you being in charge on your opponent's turn. It really if it gets destroyed on their turn, it just goes to your archives and you can choose to bring it back and use it on your turn if you want. So anyway, this is probably best off with a powerful non-logos card under it. Archimedes, 2 power with elusive, and each of its creatures gains destroyed. Archive this creature. Oh, sorry, I should say about the Jargoggle. I said it's best, with a non-logos card under it, although you could conceivably put a logos card under it and have some effect like the Grey Rider or Zakiel or Ganger Chieftain, any effect that makes, or even just direct damage. If you have an effect that will be able to kill Jargoggle on a different turn, then you can play a logos card that way. So that's possible too. So Archimedes, 2 power with elusive, and its neighbors get destroyed. Archive this creature. That is fantastic. So fantastic, your opponent really ought to kill Archimedes. But it's cool when you can get this to fire. And you can imagine, like, let's say you put this down next to Jargoggle, and then you use Jargoggle to fight. You get to play the card under Jargoggle immediately. Jargoggle gets archived, and then on your next logos turn, you can play Jargoggle back out. So some really just neat effects that can happen there. And the ZYX Researcher is another great target for this, for Archimedes, a great neighbor for Archimedes. Because he has a nice play effect. Any cards with nice play effects, I really like to have next to Archimedes. Chaos Portal is a rare coming back from called the Archons, and it's an artifact that has action. Choose a house, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is of that house, play it. So you have more or less, 1 in 3 chance of getting this right. Although if you know what's in your hand, board, archive, and discard pile, you probably have better chances than that. Sometimes you might want to make the long play, the long shot guess because there's a really powerful card you're hoping to get. So just depends, but it's a pretty cool effect. I like it. Very logosy. And then we have Master the Theory, which has a bonus aember. It's an action, and it says if there are no friendly creatures in play, you may archive a card for each enemy creature. So that can be a nice way to get your hand empty and save stuff for later. I don't love it. I feel like I'd be just as happy to see a lab work as this, but it's an interesting card. I'll give it that. All right, now we are on to Sanctum, and I would say, I mean, for what we got here in Logos, we got just a tremendous amount of archive and draw. So I'm very happy with that. I feel like having Logos on the board, I'm not going to be using that as my main get stuff done house, but for setting up the other houses, it's pretty fantastic. So in Sanctum, we have Lion Boutram, who has 4 power, 1 armor, and deploy. So you can put him anywhere in the battle line, and Lion's neighbors get +2 power. So deploy this next to Fila if you can. That's pretty cool. Put it next to Archimedes and have it be ready to get archived if something happens. But you're making Archimedes stronger in the meantime. It's a pretty cool effect, giving the neighbors +2 power. That's strong. Then we have Abond the Armor Smith, 3 power, and other friendly creatures get +1 armor, and he can take an action to give other friendly creatures an additional +1 armor for the remainder of the turn. Albade the Grim, 4 power. When you play him, you capture 3, and then every time he reaps, you discard one of those ones from him. That is a pretty cool effect. It's like a, haha, I'm taking this from you, and I'm going to start just throwing it in the trash. Deal with it. And that 4 power 1 armor makes him slightly annoying for your opponent to deal with. Bordan the Redeemed is 3 power with elusive and can exhaust to capture 2. He's weak enough that he'll, if you start accumulating a lot on him, he'll probably die, but you do that capture at the clutch moments and it's pretty good. And sometimes you might be able to get enough on there that if your opponent kills him, it's a good time to play the interdimensional graft. So that can be pretty cool. Chal the Safeguard is 4 power with 2 armor, deploy, so it can go anywhere in the battle line, and taunt. So another deploy thing that can drop next to the Fila if it's out there. And with taunt, this makes it kind of an interesting thing to put next to Archimedes potentially because it'll protect the Archimedes. And if they fight this to kill it, then it's going to get archived, which means you can bring it out next turn and put it back next to the Archimedes. So some cool interactions there. And yeah, this is, very similar to Champion and Naphiel, who is 6 power, 1 armor, and taunt. Chal has an extra armor, 1 less power, and deploy. And I think I'd rather have Chal, because usually my goal is to protect something with that thing with taunt, not more than it is to have a big creature that can blow stuff up. All right. Hallowed Shield. This one's fun. It's an action, or it's an artifact that can exhaust to choose a creature and make it not take damage for the rest of the turn. That because it's action, it's and it's Sanctum. You're going to mostly be using this on your Sanctum creatures. Like you want to go fight with Lion or Chal or something, or Albade even. But it seems like a cool effect. Haven't got to use it in the game I played, but it seems like a potentially very good effect. Healing Blast is an action with a bonus amber, and you fully heal a creature. And if you healed 4 or more damage this way, gain 2 amber. Now the interesting thing is, aside from the potential with with Lion giving a neighbor +2. So far, we haven't seen any creatures above power 4. So the ability to use this is probably pretty minimal. Although you could use it on an opponent's creature just to get that extra 2 amber. That wouldn't be a bad deal necessarily. So anyway, interesting inclusion here. We have to probably struggle to find a case to get the +2 without using it on an opponent's creature. But again, that might be an okay outcome. Shield of Justice has a bonus amber. It's an action, and for the remainder of the turn, each friendly creature cannot be dealt damage. It's returning from Call of the Archons. Take Hostages, also back. Action, it gives you a bonus amber, and then for the remainder of the turn, each time a friendly creature fights, it captures an amber. That's good amber control, and it's really fun if you get to use that on Aubade. That means that you're going to have another one on him that you're going to get to reap and throw away potentially. And then we have the Grey Rider, and this is one of my favorite Sanctum cards in this set. 2 power with deploy. Notice no elusive or anything like that. So the deploy means it could be a potentially good card to put next to Fila. This would be a really nice one to put next to something that can protect him and is big enough to actually do some stuff. And the reason is he has this powerful effect when you play him, and also after he fights or reaps, you can ready and fight with a neighboring creature. And yeah, that's just strong. I like it. Then we have, this is not quite the last one. This is our last creature in Sanctum, though. We have Rothay the Fierce, who is another 4 power with 2 armor. He has Taunt. Unlike Chal, there's no deploy on Rothay, but there is Hazardous 4, which makes this a pretty formidable taunt creature. Because before something fights him, it's already going to take 4 damage. So that's pretty cool. I like it. And then we have Seraphic Armor, which gives you a bonus amber when you play it, gives the creature you put it on +1 armor, and fully heals that creature. That is pretty cool. Alright, on to Untamed. We have Full Moon, which is back from Call of the Archons, classic. Action for the remainder of the turn. You gain an amber each time you play a creature, which in Untamed hopefully we'll be doing a bunch. There's 2 of them. I'm hoping I get a couple amber every time I play that. Grovekeeper is a new witch that has 3 power, and at the end of your turn, each of Grovekeeper's neighbors get a +1 power counter. So that's pretty cool, potentially, and that could actually work well. Getting us into a situation where maybe that healing blast does something. But it's so far I've only been able to get a couple counters out of him before he gets blown up, because that's what people tend to want to do with him. But it's good. Persistence Hunting is an action with a bonus amber. You choose a house and exhaust each enemy creature of the chosen house. It is similar to Blinding Light from Call of the Archons. The difference here is obviously it exhausts instead of stuns, but it only affects the enemy creatures. So you have to worry less about choosing, your own house. And I like it. I don't mind seeing Persistence Hunting. Save the Pack is an action back from Call of the Archons. It destroys each damaged creature, and then you gain a chain. Depending on the situation, it may or may not be worth firing. Especially, I feel like, with the tendency for creatures in this Sanctum set in this deck to have armor and be able to take and keep damage on them, it's very likely that I won't want to fire this. Plus, that I don't love the chain. So I have 2 of these in here. I don't love seeing those. I probably end up discarding those a lot. And then there may be some clutch scenarios where they help. Song of Spring is an action with 1 bonus amber that shuffles any number of friendly untamed creatures, basically from anywhere, your hand, discard pile, or battle line, back into your deck. Best if you have creatures with nice play effects, which we do have some later. Yeah, it's just a way to recycle those, get them back. Tantadlin is huge. He's 9 power, but he only does 2 damage when fighting. And after the fight, if he's still alive, you discard a random card from your opponent's archives. In the one game I did play with this deck, my opponent was using Collector Worm, and this got me occasionally a card back in my hand that I could play the next turn or even sometimes immediately. So I enjoyed having Tantadlin out. It was definitely helpful. Life Web, bonus amber, and if your opponent played 3 or more creatures on their previous turn, steal 2 amber. That is good. I like it. Never sorry to see this. Very happy to see it in the right context. Way of the Porcupine, gain a bonus amber, and the creature you put it on gets hazardous 3. There's a bunch of potentially good targets for this in this deck. The taunt creatures, you can make Rothay hazardous 7. Some of the creatures that you just want to sit out there, you make them less vulnerable by putting this on them, or even if not less vulnerable, uh, less susceptible to damage. So, or less just that your opponent has to work harder to kill them. Yeah, it's good. I really have been enjoying anytime I see Wave the Porcupine, I end up liking it. Lupo the Scarred is a rare. It's back from Call of the Archons. It's a 6 power beast with skirmish. That is, that is pretty cool. That's a powerful card. I would love to have this next to the Grey Rider. And when you play it, you deal 2 damage to an enemy creature. That's not a huge effect, but sometimes that's just perfect. And again, 6 power with skirmish is pretty good. I would love to have this, next to a card like Grey Rider, where I'm going to be able to get even more value out of it. And then lastly, we have the Mighty Tiger also returning, who is 4 power, and when you play it, you deal 4 damage to an enemy creature, uh, which is, that is strong. You're gonna, especially most of the creatures that have like really annoying persistent effects, you're gonna have a good chance of being able to deal with that way. And these cards are kind of important because those are really we don't have a lot of direct damage in here, so those are the ways that we get it for the most part. But some solid creatures in here, as well as some interesting protection. Not a ton of amber control. Most of our amber control is in the form of capture on just 3 cards, I think, in Sanctum, and then 1 card each, stealing potentially 2 in the other 2 houses. But we have some decent board control and strong amber generation. How many of these cards have an amber printed on them? Quite a few, I feel like. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's not bad, and they're pretty much all cards that I probably just want to play. I'm not going to let them sit around in my hand. And then a couple cards like the Life Web or the Full Moon are probably going to generate an amber or two. So a pretty decent amber generation in here, as well as some decent board control. So fun deck all around. Um, I love all the archive shenanigans in Logos, along with some strong play effects. So really really nice stuff. I look forward to playing this in real life some more. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. And once again, if you did, go ahead and follow me, and you'll get to see more. I promise. I'll be posting more. And then until the next time, get out there and forge some keys.